Let me know when you're ready, Will. Good to go?
Yes, people. We're back again. Raps on TV in the building. Fresh off the weekend's action, stateside and also over here. It's good to be back here with my co-host this week, Kojo. Fresh from his trip to Los Angeles. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, mate. Ready to be back and tackle this action-packed show. Definitely tired. Lot to discuss, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting into that and all the other topics.
Yeah, so we're going to dive straight into it. Errol Spence, Sean Porter unification. I'm going to get our reactions to that. Also going to touch base on the a shock announcement of Nigel Benn's return to boxing. He's going to be fighting in Birmingham on a return bill. The announcement of Wilder against Ortiz, also scheduled as we anticipated. And this weekend, Gennady Golovkin returns against Sergey Divyachenko. Hope I pronounced that right. As always, make sure you listen in. The number to call, just get it up quickly.
Man's not ready now.
Man's not equipped.
I've got that no. So the number is 0116 326 5165. Or the other number is 01506 353955. That's 01506 353955.
And lines will open at 8 o'clock. Make sure you go sharp. Make sure you go follow our social media streams at Raps on TV and all of that. Coach, first of all, just want to give your insight into the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there live in the flesh.
Yeah.
Errol Spence,
Sean Porter,
unification,
Benavidez, Darrell,
man,
a lot of more fighters on the undercard. But no, you hit the nail on the head. I was live and direct, shattered, but first time in LA, really enjoyed it. LA's different. As a city, I think as boxing fans, we get opportunities to go to different cities. But for me, LA is definitely different. It's hot. Everything is far.
Yeah.
It's a bit rowdy, but Staples Center is really nice. So obviously got there on a Tuesday, kicked into fight week immediately. I really like the way PBC do things. I know people will say, "Oh, you're pro PBC," but to be fair, you got to call it as you see it. And I think they've done really well. So get there on a Tuesday and the Wednesday, it's all press activities. But I think it's key for me to say, going back into the fight week, I felt Spence Jr. would knock out Porter.
Yeah.
But I don't know, when I saw the two of them, the energies, especially at the press conference on the Wednesday, the way they were talking to each other, the shape and sizes, I was like, I don't think he's going to knock out Sean Porter because nobody's knocked out Sean Porter.
Yeah.
So I think it'll go unanimous decision. But I did find some of the disrespect a bit OTT. For those of you, this is a little plug. That's all the interview I did with Derek James.
Yeah.
You saw some of his comments around Porter and his father not being respectful for him and kind of wasting his talent.
Yeah.
And arguably, here's another plug. That's what, 5 minutes, 2 plugs already. But I also got the only video of sort of the altercation between Kenny Porter and Derek James. But overall, going into that from the weigh-in, you could tell it was tense. I was speaking to a lot of media, and I felt like it was a Mayweather Zab Judah, like that fight all those years ago, in terms of where Errol Spence is as a champion, but going on to be pound for pound. That was Mayweather. And Zab Judah, who was someone that had a lot of potential, but is a credible opponent for any given champion. So I saw quite a few similarities there. And when the fight came on the Saturday, I was convinced it would be Spence unanimous decision. But when the fucking first bell rang and it went ding, 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 I was like, wow. The tension from round 1 to round 12 was fully there. Obviously, I'm going to ask you what your thoughts were. But I felt great publicity from PBC, great promotion for what they're doing. Great advertisement for Sean Porter to say, listen, don't see me as a journeyman or a nearly man. I'm a class and tough world champion, and if you beat me, it says a lot about you as well. So Yeah, really impressed with everything overall. We'll get into the technical aspects, but what did you think of the fight overall?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think credit to PBC. You know, the exposure they give to this fight. It wasn't sort of no ordinary unification. We know both Errol Spence and Sean Porter are both credible champions.
Exactly.
And like you said, I think Sean Porter has established himself as not the bogeyman, but the guy that you got to kind of beat to get really to that elite level.
Exactly.
Not a gatekeeper, but more of a rugged fighter who's got a lot of credentials to come back now and win a world title. There's no reason why he couldn't. Maybe just a few adjustments, a few adaptations in the Spence fight. I just think Spence's size probably overwhelmed him a little bit. But then again, he was coming forward. He was throwing bombs and just probably didn't respect Spence's power to give him that kind of courtesy that he could hold back. And I thought it shaped up to be fight of the year.
Easy.
Great fight. Stylistically, it caught fire, and to support undercard action was good. So overall it was a satisfying weekend of boxing.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Hearn on Boxing Social, and he spoke about Errol Spence Jr. Said great opponent. He said, I guess, and I think this was for me. This is the sort of I echo this sentiment that a lot of people felt that Spence was going to dominate. If it wasn't a knockout, if it would dominate him, because we didn't see that. I think sometimes. Also, so because we didn't see that, people feel he didn't deliver, he didn't, maybe not even win the fight. But I think Aaron hit the nail on the head for me when he said Errol Spence showing that he's beatable. And I will have to say, I think he is the truth. I think he's a big fighter. I think he can probably beat all the other champions. But I think he also showed that, listen, if you bring a certain element of energy and aggression coupled with good skill sets, I think he can be beaten. Or he will be in closer fights than he would like to. And I think, the knockdown didn't help on the scorecards because he was already ahead. But I think from an optics perspective, I felt a lot of people said, okay, well, now I'm going to give it to him. Even Porter's reaction was a little bit like, that knockdown was decisive.
The be-all or end-all kind of thing.
I mean, for you, did you see any flaws in Spence's game, or did you feel it was like a perfect performance?
I think it was a good performance. I've heard a lot of things saying that it wasn't Errol Spence at his best, and I feel those first few rounds where Porter was on top, I think it was kind of a feel-out process for Spence. But I don't think in fights against Pacquiao or a Crawford he's going to afford to give away those early rounds. I mean, probably in terms of measure and size, he was trying to work Porter out because he knew he'd bring that aggressive style, that he'd come forward, he'd throw a lot of shots. And I think if you're looking at punch stats and you're looking at the volume of work that Porter had, it was far superior to anyone that Spence's fought, and that's facts, that's on paper. I think Spence moving forward, will he kind of have regretted not starting a bit sharper? No, because I think he's one of those fighters quite similar to Mayweather really, where he can give away rounds, and then those championship rounds, maybe 7-8 rounds left, if he gives away the first 4, he knows he can win because he's kind of worked out his opponent, and he can push on, he can kick on and go through the gears. So I think to say punch perfect performance, no, but a good performance and got the win. So that's what matters. He got the win and he moves on into the big marquee fights.
No, I totally agree with you on that. And I think, again, for me, what I have to take, and I said this to Porter when I saw it for the interview the morning after, I said, look, you're getting a lot of credit. I think even as somebody that's lost the fight, I think you can hold your head up as a still worthy champion. And I think, it's never a lose-lose situation when you a win-win situation when you lose your belt. But I think, he has to take some credit because he said he would give Spence Jr. his toughest fight and show him a lot of things he's never dealt with before, and I think he's accurate with that.
Definitely.
I think there was just the little things where you saw Spence was probably more accurate with landing the shots, the body shots especially, probably even some of the power shots. I think also Porter has to take credit because he showed good sort of footwork, the movement, sort of like the just bouncing, being on your toes, moving, keeping the angles on Spence. He struggled with that. I do think Porter, like you said, when you said touch up on a few things, I think not just the accuracy, and I think it was the real reference, what Spence really meant when he said you're going to drown, is he was swinging a bit too wild. I think there were a few lunges with his head down, and Spence was smart enough to kind of capitalise, whether it would be with a jab or whether it be with a 1-2. I felt Spence Jr. really showed his smarts there. But listen, it was a cracking fight end to end. What I really wanted to see was how Spence would deal with the strength of Porter, and I felt at times he done well, at times he didn't. I felt at times where he really looked wobbled. He had to take 3 seconds out and compose himself.
Do you feel like Porter was a bit eager to empty the tank, and kind of like you said, they're not picking shots efficiently?
Yeah.
Do you think that was his kind of downfall come the later rounds?
Yeah, I think you're probably right with that, because again, when you look at the knockdown, it felt more exhaustion than straight power. I know the shot landed cleanly, but I felt his legs didn't buckle, so it just felt like it was a bit of exhaustion, in my opinion. I think you're right. I think he was so eager to sort of bring the dogfight to Spence Jr. that I think probably he did tire himself out. And what happens when you fight good fighters and really great elite fighters is when they're figuring it out, it takes you by surprise. We heard Mikey Garcia say the same thing about Spence Jr. You know, everything he tried to bring, Spence Jr. figured it out. And I think you could probably argue that Spence Jr. did the same. Because we were expecting a dominant performance, we're not giving the credit of the dogfight. But I think arguably you would say the same.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think next for both Spence? There's talks of.
Ask you that question. I want to ask, and the reason why I want to ask you is because you watched the fight, obviously, and I was there. So I like looking into it, seeing Danny Garcia come in afterwards.
There was a lot of big names there. You had Santa Cruz, Wilder, Ortiz,
Charlo brothers.
Charlo brothers. So a lot of attention.
Tank, to this
fight.
Ugas was there. I mean, they really know what they're doing with this BBC. But who would you like to see Spence Jr. fight next, and who would you like to see Porter fight next?
I think I'd like to see Spence fight Pacquiao. No discredit or to Pacquiao.
Yep.
I think Spence, by beating Pacquiao, will then establish himself as a real top pound for pound. Like you said, the big fish. He's the big fish in the division. I do feel he calls the shots now. Everyone's saying the Crawford fight, whose team is avoiding who, etc. But I don't think it's a case of avoiding. I just think it's a timing thing where Crawford is a dangerous fight. Pacquiao, even though he looks like he's improving fight by fight and he's coming on a bit, I think Spence knows that he's got the size and he's got the power to really trouble Pacquiao. So I think that's the fight that's going to happen next. But then Garcia's in the mix, Furman. So all these guys are in the mix. You just never know with this 147-pound division. PBC are doing bits to manoeuvre all these guys, make sure they fight each other, and that's what we want to see as boxing fans. We want to see the best fight the best, and no excuses. So I can't see why the Porter Spence fight won't happen, and I think it's only a matter of time.
The rematch, you mean?
Sorry, the Spence Crawford.
Spence Crawford.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think so. I don't know whether to start on that or to start with who I think they should fight. I do think Spence Jr. could fight Pacquiao. I don't think that will happen. I think they're probably going to look at Garcia, Danny Garcia, that is, because he, again, is a big puncher. He's in-house.
He brings a name. It's someone you can take off the list.
Exactly. If you're talking about what they're trying to do, the pay-per-view numbers, which are supposedly already, they're saying is around 350k buys, I think they know that Danny Garcia can enhance that. So I think his market makes it a big fight. And
he'll talk, he'll in the pre-fight stuff.
He's going to speak up as well. So exactly, you hit the nail on the head there. So for me, I do think. So I think really it's not about Spence. I think it is about Porter, and not that. I think I'd like to see him fight Crawford if I'm being notorious, because I think it would be good to see how Crawford could deal with Porter's style. I think the strength, the size difference wouldn't be as much in terms of the reach between Crawford and Porter. I think Porter would be up for it because Crawford would talk shit. I think his coach will talk shit. So I think that will motivate them to kind of work hard, as we've seen with this fight gone the weekend just gone. And I'm not saying Crawford will lose, but I think how he potentially win would say a lot as to what could happen with the Spence Jr. fight, because I still back Spence Jr. I don't think, and for me, I didn't see anything in the Porter fight that said to me Crawford can still beat him. I'll still stick to that decision. So,
is there like a growing trend, do you think, with all these big fights? We see with Wilder, Joshua, Garcia, Lomachenko, Davis, Lomachenko, etc. Do you think Spence and Crawford is another replica of like Mayweather, Pacquiao, that fights like this are going to be bigged up? They're going to take a bit of time to really kind of marinate before they happen, or do you think it's a realistic option for both to take it as soon as they can?
Yeah, I want to be honest. I think it is going to be. It's about marinating. I think you're talking about business. I think if you say to Crawford, like what do you bring to the table, and you compare that to what Spence brings to the table on the pay-per-view prize, I think that's where you're going to have an issue. I think it will take a bit of time. I think what we're going to see, in my opinion, and again, this is me going around the houses maybe a little bit, but I think you're going to see Crawford basically get offered deals. I don't think if Crawford wants these big fights, he's not going to get them by staying with Top Rank. I think he has to leave, because everybody he's going to want to fight, which is going to make him money and is entertaining, is not on his side of the street.
And there is a clash there with competition, pay-per-view. You've got Top Rank on one side, PBC on the other. And that's what they're looking to do. They're trying to create a platform and a forum for their fighters within that stable at the weight to be as big as possible. And have, like PBC seem to have 3 or 4 fighters that are worthy of pay-per-view status. And then you've got Crawford on the other side. So it's going to be a challenge. I don't think... Probably Crawford's a bit of a lone wolf, really, because he's on his own. There's not really any fighters behind him that are going to press the Top Rank banner for getting these big fights. Whereas Spence can call the shots now. He can decide whether he wants to take a Garcia, a Pacquiao, if he wants to go straight down into the deep end. So it's a lot to contend with.
And I think, you know, you've got to maybe question, but I do think you've got to look at Crawford signing the deal with Arum and Top Rank. I think, you know, because you've got to look at the money. If you say, hypothetically speaking, Spencer brings 5 million and Crawford brings 3 million, or even if you want to say 5, call it 5, it's a split of 10. You've got to pay both fighters, and then the promoters need to get paid, and then the networks need to get paid. So how much is really being divvied up between that? How much is going to be divvied up from what's generated? We're not talking Mayweather Pacquiao when we knew 300 million. So shit, this one gets 100, this one gets 100, they take 50. Everyone's going to be happy. There's not that kind of money there. So that's why I think they need to let it marinate. Do
you think the profile side of things is an issue with Crawford being touted as this, you know, pound for pound superstar, whereas Spence isn't really kind of had an argument to make a case for him to be a pound for pound fighter? Do you think that's? I suppose you could look at it from an egotistical point of view, with Crawford having that. You know, people saying that, people fuel him with the pound for pound status, where Spence has kind of had to work his way up. Do you think that could be a barrier?
I don't know if it's going to be a barrier, because I think the pay-per-view numbers will be telling, but I do think it's going to sway people's decision in terms of who they pick, and I think it's going to give Crawford a right to say, listen, you need to fight me because I've done something you haven't done, which is I've unified a division and come and see you. So come and see me kind of thing.
Exactly,
so I do think it doesn't go in Spence's favour. Does beating Garcia make him pound for pound? I say no. I think that's why it would be better for them to go for Pacquiao, but I doubt that will happen straight away. So yeah, I think, you know, if you were to say who out of the two, who's arguably more pound for pound, I think you have to give it to Crawford. He's unified the division, he's gone up, he's taken the challenge. I think now it's just about his business savvy to say, well, do you want to maintain that legacy? Because, I mean, I can't even pronounce the name of the guy he's fighting on in December, which is yet to be announced, but if that's pay-per-view, it's an MSG, I mean, what are you going to do after that? Do you know what I mean? And you could easily see, let's just say Spence fights Garcia, Pacquiao fights, what's his face? Mikey Garcia. Porter could fight, he could take a break, or Porter could fight Pacquiao. I mean, I doubt Pacquiao would want that fight, but he could fight him. And then, you know, you've got Ugas that's in the mix now, you've still got Thurman, but he's out injured. Kell Brook again reported that BBC might sign him, so I think it's going to look tough. It's looking tough for Crawford. I'm not going to lie, he's going to have to make a decision. But yeah, moving on from that busy week, let's quickly talk on the Friday night show
at Royal Albert Hall.
Do you want to do a quick intro while I just switch up the camera? Sorry guys, we're a small team, so we have to multitask.
Royal Albert Hall, Daniel Dubois, emphatic